SpongeBob SquarePants Mysteries, Ooze in the Ocean. Chapter 14. At that point in the investigation, I was feeling lower than a barnacle on the belly of a rock-bottom snakefish. We had a great lead and we lost it, and now Beth was on to us. She'd probably go deep into hiding and we'd have no idea where she was. That is, I'd have no idea. There was no we anymore. I was on my own. Well, sometimes being a detective is a lonely business. Meow, Gary said as SpongeBob slogged into the house and hung his hat on the rack. Hey, Gary, SpongeBob responded gloomily, heading for the kitchen to get Gary's snail food out of the cabinet. Meow, Gary asked. I don't want to talk about it, SpongeBob said, pouring food into Gary's bowl. If Gary had shoulders instead of a shell, he would have shrugged them and started eating. As it was, he just started eating. He was hungry. SpongeBob had been gone for hours. SpongeBob poured himself a refreshing cold beverage, walked back into the living room, and plopped down in his easy chair in front of the TV. But he didn't turn on the news. He wanted to think. He felt bad about Patrick. But sometimes things just didn't work out. From the start, he suspected that his friend wasn't really cut out for detective work. It was a tough racket, and not everyone could handle the pressure. Still, SpongeBob couldn't just let the case go. He knew he was onto something. That much was clear. Otherwise, why would Beth have run off like that? Somebody was up to no good in Bikini Bottom, and SpongeBob was determined to stop them. If he didn't, his heroes would almost certainly lose their home. And then how could SpongeBob ever call himself a detective again? Sipping his drink, he reviewed the facts as he knew them. A mysterious trail of green ooze had appeared behind the Shady Shoals rest home several nights in a row. The ooze glowed in the dark, but it hadn't come from the Flying Dutchman. It didn't match the slime from his ship. The old ghost pirate had been busy scaring Squilliam Fancy Son. Later that same night, someone had stolen Squilliam's rare antique monobrow comb and left another glowing green slime track behind his house. Sandy's analysis showed that the ooze was made by a radioactive mutant slug. Gary had finished his heaping bowl of snail food and belched happily. Meow! Distracted for a moment, SpongeBob got up, washed out Gary's bowl, and patted his pet on the eyeballs. And he sat back down in his easy chair and resumed his review of the case. With Sandy's tracking device, they'd found another trail of slime and followed it into the wilderness. It led to a huge tunnel that could only have been dug by an Alaskan bullworm. By asking around at the Salty Spittoon, they met Beth, known for wrangling Alaskan bullworms. She was dressed in expensive new clothes, suggesting she just scored a big payday. But when they'd asked her about digging tunnels, she'd taken off in her bullmobile, leading them on a merry chase. Well, not so merry. For a moment, SpongeBob thought about Patrick and felt bad, but he forced his mind back to the facts of the investigation. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make them add up. A mutant slug, an Alaskan bullworm, a bejeweled monobrow comb, what did it all mean? Heck, if he knew. What he needed was a fresh new clue, but how would he get it? Then he got an idea. Aha! He cried, jumping out of his chair. I'll use Sandy's invention again! It'll lead me straight to any new ooze trails! He looked around, wondering where he'd left the radioactive ooze finder. Then he remembered. The gadget had fallen into the Alaskan bullworm tunnel when he was teetering on the edge of its opening. As much as he didn't want to go back down there, SpongeBob knew that he had to, for the sake of Merman and Barnacle Boy. Their home was in danger, and they were relying on him. He had to do what a hero would do, and journey into the darkness to solve this case. While he was down there, maybe he could explore the tunnel and search for more clues. But first he needs some gear. SpongeBob ran to his closet and flung the door open. Digging through all the junk piled on the closet floor, he came up with a strong adjustable flashlight and a sturdy length of rope. "These'll do," he said, heading toward the front door. "See you later, Gary." Meow. "Oh, alright." Before he left, SpongeBob changed Gary's litter box. SpongeBob approached the wide opening to the tunnel cautiously. It was quiet. No one seemed to be around. Switching on his flashlight, he got down on his stomach and shone the light deep into the deep hole. All he could see were the sides of the shaft grooved by the twisting segments of the giant worm who dug it. The passageway led straight down and turned, running parallel to the ground. It continued out of sight from the entrance. I wonder where it goes, SpongeBob thought. Maybe at the end of this tunnel there's a solution to the mystery. Near the entrance, SpongeBob found a thick branch of coral. He tied his rope to it using knots Mr. Krabs had taught him during slow hours at the Krusty Krab. "You never know when you might need to tie a good strong knot, boy," Mr. Krabs had told him. "I learned how to tie every knot there is back when I was head chef on the SS Diarrhea. They loved me food, and they loved me knots. Arr, 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 arr." SpongeBob sighed. "Oh, I wish Patrick were here. I could tell him about what Mr. Krabs said, and we could get a good laugh together," the lonely detective thought. Once he'd finished tying several knots, including Mr. Krabs' patented dangle a rope into a deep hole knot, SpongeBob gave the rope a good strong tug. It held. He tossed the other end of the long rope into the hole. Holding his flashlight in his mouth, the brave detective grabbed the rope, walked backward toward the pit, and rappelled down, bouncing off the walls of the shaft with his feet. Luckily, just before he ran out of rope, he touched bottom. Sweeping his flashlight around, he spotted the fallen radioactive ooze finder. He picked it up. It didn't seem to be broken. SpongeBob switched it on and its display panel lit up. "Okay," he said to himself, thinking of Merman and Barnacle Boy and plucking up his courage. "Time to find out where this creepy tunnel goes." He started down the passageway, shining his flashlight ahead of him. "Hello?" he called out. "Anybody here?" But his own voice just echoed back at him. No one else answered. As he walked along, SpongeBob noticed that the tunnel was sloping down slightly, going deeper into the earth. The deeper he went, the colder it was, until he was shivering and his teeth were chattering. "Man," he thought, "I sure wish Patrick were here. It'd be nice to have someone to talk to. It's cold, dark, and spooky down here. Oh, how far does this tunnel go anyway?" He thought back to his theory that someone had just been practicing making a trained Alaskan bullworm dig. He figured maybe some criminal had needed a tunnel, so he'd gone to Beth and paid her to supply a trained Alaskan bullworm. They'd come out here to the middle of nowhere to practice, or maybe Beth had given the crooks a demonstration of her worm's tunneling abilities. But then why did the tunnel go on so long? How much of a demonstration did the bad guys need anyway? SpongeBob swung his flashlight back and forth, scanning the floor for clues, and every few steps he shone his light on the curved ceiling of the tunnel high over his head. Each time he thought he'd spotted something, maybe a sea bat or a sea owl. It turned out to be nothing more than a shadow caused by the spiraling rings left behind by the burrowing Alaskan bullworm. SpongeBob let out a tired sigh. Oh, this whole expedition was turning out to be a bust, but just as he was thinking about turning back, he noticed footprints. SpongeBob perked up with excitement and followed them until he heard something even further up ahead. It sounded like snoring. Could something or someone be sleeping in the tunnel just a few steps ahead around the next bend? SpongeBob moved over to the wall of the tunnel and put his left hand against it. With his right hand, he switched off his flashlight. Now he was in total darkness. Tiptoeing, he crept forward, feeling his way along the wall. His eyes adjusted to the darkness, and as he came around the curve of the burrow, he saw the faint outline of something in the gloom. A sleeping Alaskan bullworm! SpongeBob was so surprised that he dropped his flashlight. As it clattered against the ground, it switched on, filling the chamber with light. The worm's black eyes snapped open. Wah! SpongeBob screamed. Roar! The Alaskan bullworm roared, showing its razor-sharp teeth and its long pink tongue. SpongeBob scooped up his flashlight, turned, and ran as fast as he could back the way he came, hoping against hope that the Alaskan worm wouldn't come after him. His hopes were dashed. The huge worm came barreling down the tunnel like a locomotive, opening and closing its cavernous mouth, clashing its teeth together. When its mouth was open, it roared. When it was closed, it growled. Roar! Stay tuned for chapter 15 coming up soon.